Thank you everyone for attending tonight. I am so excited. Welcome and greetings to everyone to our first annual District 7 Corporate Expo. My name is Lorri Andersen. I am your Club Growth Director for District 7. Many people have asked me, what is Toastmasters all about? I want to start a club or a program at my company, and I don't know how to do it. I want to learn about the benefits, the return on investment. I just want to know about Toastmasters. So for that reason, we developed this program to share with you. We have an awesome keynote speaker. Gary Schmidt is here with us tonight. It's going to be followed by a panel of business professionals to talk about their experience and wisdom, and followed up by a session of questions and answers. Gary is the county administrator for Clackamas County. He previously worked as the Director of Public and Government Affairs at Clackamas County, and before that as a speechwriter and constituent services coordinator for two United States senators. He has been a Toastmaster for 26 years and is currently a member of 3 Toastmasters clubs. He served as the international president of Toastmasters International in 2009 and 2010. Gary will be speaking tonight on communicating in competitive times. Please help me give a warm welcome to Gary Schmidt, Communicating in Competitive Times. Gary Schmidt.
Thank you, Lorri. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Many of you are Toastmasters. I recognize many of you. Some of you are not yet Toastmasters. And many of you may be considering how or why should I start a Toastmasters club, and in particular, a corporate-based Toastmasters club. Well, I will address all of those questions and answers for you tonight, as will our panel later on. But first, I want to take you back in time, at least back in time for me, to when I was a high school student over, I'll say 30 years ago here in Oregon. And I worked as a high school student at Nordstrom. Nordstrom is a department store chain across the world, actually. And in its heyday was known as the best corporate environment that provided the best customer service to its customers. And I can attest that was true as far as how employees were trained at Nordstrom. And although I was a high school student working part-time at Nordstrom during my summer breaks, I can attest every new employee, including the temporary employees, were given a crash course in effective customer service before we were even allowed on the sales floor. And it was intense. It was intense. We learned how best to serve and support people. And one of the first things we were taught is effective communication skills. And right there on the spot, they gave us a crash course on how to speak effectively, how to speak impromptu, how to provide the very best service as we delivered our very best vocal and nonverbal communication. And the saying at Nordstrom was, the customer is always right. And in fact, they taught us to return items that people brought to Nordstrom, even if it was not originally purchased at a Nordstrom store. And we would accept and return that item, even if it was not a Nordstrom product. And you might think, what a bad business case, but it was not. It was not, because that inspired a level of customer loyalty with all those who shopped at Nordstrom. And the return on investment was phenomenal, simply by accepting a return that didn't even belong to the Nordstrom product line. So I remember over 30 years ago when I worked at Nordstrom, wow, customer service is key and effective communication is key too. Now, fast forward, I forgot all about that, especially the effective communication part, until I graduated from college many years later. And when I realized I was not a very good communicator at all. And ultimately, I found my way to Toastmasters, and it changed my life, as it does for all of us who are members of Toastmasters. Yet now, as a leader in Toastmasters and in my own organization, I'm harking back to that time I worked at Nordstrom. And when I learned as a young high school student the power of effective customer service, and in part, delivering that effective customer service was based on exquisite communication skills. And that really is what Toastmasters does today for all of us who are members or who aspire to be members. And by the way, Nordstrom has Toastmasters clubs. I checked, they still do. So Toastmasters really helps, obviously, those of us who are members, improves our communication skills, our leadership skills, our listening skills, feedback skills, all of those components of effective leadership. What Toastmasters really does, though, is gives us confidence. Confidence to know that we can speak to anyone, anytime, about any topic. And now, as a leader in government and the business world, I've learned that the most important trait of an employee is effective communication skills, effective interpersonal relation skills. With those two traits, in my view, an employee can really learn all the technical aspects of doing their job. But effective communication and interpersonal relation skills are key to success in the professional world. And that is where a Toastmasters club based in a corporation, in a nonprofit organization, in any sort of government agency really can be a positive impact, not only on the employee, but on your bottom line as well. I am currently the county administrator at Clackamas County here in Oregon. That's the chief administrative officer for the government agency. I report to an elected board of county commissioners, and we have 2,700 employees at Clackamas County. Of course, I've been a Toastmaster for almost half my life, over 26 years. And even though I've worked at Clackamas County now for 12 years, it wasn't until really 6 years ago that I thought, why don't we start a Toastmasters club at Clackamas County? And actually, I see one of my fellow Toastmaster members at Clackamas County is here tonight, Liliana. Thank you for being here. But I remember when we first started that club, I had heard these stories in Toastmasters, examples of where a chief executive officer would send an email to every employee of a company saying, come and check out Toastmasters. It will change your life. And that hundreds of people would show up to the first Toastmasters meeting simply because the CEO sent an email. And I wanted to test to see if that really worked. So I asked the county administrator at Clackamas County at the time, before me, if he would do that, if he would send an email to all 2,700 county employees and encourage them to attend what we call a kickoff meeting for a new Toastmasters club at Clackamas County. And I asked him to do one little minor adjustment, and that is, and his name was Don. I said, Don, would you add a line saying, joining Toastmasters will be beneficial for your professional growth at Clackamas County? And Don agreed to do that. He sent that email to 2,700 employees. And at our kickoff meeting for the new Toastmasters Club, we had, ready, 130 employees show up, which is, it's under 10%, but that was huge. For those of us in Toastmasters to have 130 people show up for a kickoff meeting, that's pretty powerful. And we had that many people attend. We barely fit in the meeting room. And then ultimately we started 2 Toastmasters clubs at Clackamas County. Now the benefit, the day-to-day return on investment of a Toastmasters club, and again, those of you who are Toastmasters, you already know this, is it improves an employee's confidence overall, but also all the other traits I previously mentioned, communication skills, leadership skills, listening skills, evaluation skills, writing skills, overall interpersonal relational skills. All of those ultimately affect the bottom line of your business, whether you're a for-profit, nonprofit, or a government agency. The employee grows his or her skills. That gives them the confidence to want to take on more opportunities at work. It helps the customer service experience. It helps them do better at their jobs, which ultimately helps the organization thrive and grow. Toastmasters works, especially in a business environment. When I was a Toastmasters leader here in the Oregon district, we had a similar experience at US Bank in downtown Portland when US Bank still had a headquarters in the US Bank building, the tallest building in downtown Portland. And the similar idea, the CEO sent a message to employees, check out Toastmasters, except that CEO wrote, your performance is based on you joining Toastmasters. In other words, that CEO threw the gauntlet down and told employees they would be recognized financially if they chose to join a Toastmasters club. Now, I hope as an executive, you would be willing to make that commitment. I actually am at Clackamas County, although we're a public entity. But that also got hundreds of people to join Toastmasters originally, and then the club maintained itself over a period of time. Toastmasters is a phenomenal training program, and it really helps the employee, it helps the organization, it helps your customer, whoever your customer may be. It is key to consider how Toastmasters can be exactly what you're looking for in your training program. Again, back to Clackamas County where I work, Toastmasters is considered a professional training opportunity. We allow that for all employees, from those who are just starting to the more veteran employee. I encourage every employee that I interact with to join Toastmasters. I don't pressure them to join, but again, when they hear the county administrator encourages it, and when they see me at a meeting as well, I hope that's a positive example to the employee. It really helps everyone all around. And I can't tell you enough, in my view, and Liliana, you can comment later if you want, how essential it has been to our success at Clackamas County. And I know all of you who are a member of a corporate-based club, I'm sure can tell your own story and example. And our panel later today will have that opportunity. The power of Toastmasters, especially in the corporate or business environment. One more quick story. When I first joined Toastmasters, I also joined a club at my place of employment. My first job after I graduated, working for a United States Senator. That was Mark Hatfield here in Oregon. His office was located in downtown Portland in the utility Portland General Electric, the building that Portland General Electric owns. And Portland General Electric has a Toastmasters club for employees that they also opened up to the larger community. And I was able to join that club as a community member, although I was not an employee of Portland General Electric. So my first club after I joined Toastmasters many, many years ago was in a corporate club environment. And I absolutely loved it. One, because I got to know the members of the corporation who I would not have ever interacted with otherwise, but I got to watch their career growth, and they would share how they would be promoted in their jobs or how they had gained influence at work because of their involvement in Toastmasters. And I always thought, what a great opportunity if we could have a corporate-based club where I worked. Now, I worked for the United States Senate. Senator Hatfield's staff was too small to have our own base club, but the United States Senate has multiple clubs in Washington, D.C., by the way. And that just inspired me that someday at my place of employment, we would have Toastmasters clubs. And of course, now I'm pleased to say that's the case at Clackamas County. So Toastmasters, it is critical to be an effective communicator in a competitive environment. It teaches us nimbleness, flexibility, the ability to communicate at any time to any audience in any manner, such as on Zoom. Who would have ever thought we'd be communicating this way 1 year ago? And now here we are. And we learned to use this little box that we're placed in, to look at a camera, to still use gestures within the frame. All of those things we learn in Toastmasters. It can help in the corporate environment. I encourage you to consider Toastmasters in your business, in your government, in your for-profit or nonprofit organization. We're here to talk more about that tonight and answer your questions. Thank you for being here. Let's move on to the panel. Thank you so much. Lorri, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your speech, Gary. It's just amazing. You have so much to share. And we only had a small amount, a segment of time. So I wish we could have listened to you for an hour of all the things that you could have shared and the stories. But now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started with our panel. And facilitating our panel is a friend of mine, Cindy Latch. Cindy Latch is a lifelong learner. She found her first Toastmasters club when she was looking for a group that encouraged learning and growing leaders. She joined the first club that evening that she attended because it just felt right. That was 2009. Cindy was the founding member of Rumble Don't Mumble, Toastmaster Club at Harley-Davidson Motor Company, where she has worked for the past 21 years. Cindy sees the impact that Toastmaster has on her work, her roles as a global manager, and as an individual. Please help me give a warm welcome to Cindy Latch. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorri. It's so exciting to be here with you this evening. And Gary, thank you for that inspirational kickoff to this event. It couldn't be a more perfect beginning to this panel discussion. What I'd like to do first is have our panelists each introduce themselves. And since Gary, you just finished, why don't you kick us off with a brief look at you as our panelist this evening.
Thank you, Cindy, very much. Yes, I sort of mentioned my background in my presentation. I have been a member of Toastmasters for 26 years. I originally joined both a community club and a corporate-based club. I have helped to start multiple corporate-based Toastmasters clubs, and I'm currently a member of a corporate-based club. So I'm happy to share my experiences being a member of a corporate club and helping to start corporate clubs. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Awesome, thank you. And our next panelist, if I could hear from Mr. Jim Coley. Jim, if you could give us your background.
Sure, Cindy. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jim Coley. I'm a past international director from Toastmasters International, and I grew up as a Toastmaster in the state of Wisconsin. In September 2002, I wandered into a community club because at that time I had 27 engineers working for me, 4 of whom had been told by the previous manager that they needed to improve their communication skill. Like that was a knob that you could just sort of turn and magically produce results. And the reality of it is General Electric will send people to class as a reward mechanism, as an incentive for high potential folks. And folks who are trying to work on communication skills have to look to other means. So I visited the Waukesha Toastmasters of Southeastern Wisconsin. They call themselves the best club in the universe, and at times it does seem like that. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I watched some of the things that happened. They had a humorist who gave us some jokes out of a book. Table topics was interesting, the speeches, but when we got to the evaluations, I thought, this is the thing. You can go anywhere you want and listen to people talk, but unless you hear how those speeches were interpreted, how they affected you, and what people could do to connect better, you might as well be reading a book somewhere. And so for me, that's the thing that clicked for me. I recommended it to my employees. I joined myself that very night. I tried starting a corporate club. We turned it into a community club back and forth. When I moved to California, we started a corporate club. And as a region advisor, I helped do some prep work did some cold calls. Larry was talking about this earlier. In District 49, I've done cold calls. I've done cold calls in a few other districts. And it's a very interesting process. So I've been part of the process of creating a club, setting up the circumstances, meeting with HR people, talking through the different options that people have. And I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk more about it.
Awesome, thank you, Jim. And next I'd like to ask Adele O'Neill. Please introduce yourself as a panelist.
Thank you, Cindy. Well, hi, my name is Adele O'Neill, and I've been a member of 3 corporate clubs over the years. I first joined the Evergreen International Club in 1991, and it was closed to members of the public. A few years into my Toastmaster experience, I left private sector and started working in human resources for the state of Oregon. I joined the Toasting Excellence Club at the time, which was a club started by the the Treasury Department, but we were open to members of the public. And while I've been working for the state, I and another Toastmaster started a corporate club called Los Bilingües, which was a Spanish-English bilingual Toastmaster club for people working at the state. I'm currently semi-retired and still a member of Toasting Excellence.
Welcome, thank you very much. And in our last panelist, if PJ Kleffner, would you come forward and tell us about your experience in corporate?
Thank you, Cindy. My first experience with Toastmasters was 20 years ago, and it was similar to what Gary described at the Electric Toasters Club in Portland General Electric. I worked for Tektronix, a high-tech company. I saw a flyer on the bulletin board and I thought, oh, that looks like it might be interesting. I knew absolutely nothing what I was getting into, but I walked into the Toastmasters Club. It was a community club, so we had a combination of Tektronix employees and people who were not tech employees. The thing that I remember the most from that very first ever meeting was how much they accomplished in 1 hour. At the very beginning, Lorri mentioned we want to start on time. We start meetings on time, we end meetings on time, and as a member of my home club likes to say, and we have a good time. So we value everyone's time, and we time everything that happens in a Toastmasters meeting. We time the prepared speakers, the impromptu speaking, the evaluations, everything gets timed because we want to learn how to communicate succinctly and make the best use of the time given to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, welcome to all of you. I wanted to touch back on a phrase you mentioned, Gary, in your opening, which was ROI, that classic return on our investment. And now more than ever, and I do work at Harley-Davidson, we are very concerned with, meeting that bottom line and how are we going to be as cost conscious as possible. And I really want to open this up to the panel to talk about the return on the investment of a Toastmaster club. I think there's the investment in the training dollars, but there's also the return on the investment in the employee as an entity functioning at the company. So as we look at return on investment, I'd like to open that up as a question for someone to have a comment on how have they seen that function in their workplace. Jim is smiling broadly, so absolutely come forward. This is a panel, take your mics off.
So I'm not making this up, but it's the kind of thing that sounds a little bit made up. In 2012, I was invited so I mentioned in 2002, I was basically middle tier management at GE General Electric, GE Healthcare. And at that time, when I joined Toastmasters, I did not have great communication skills. And there's a pretty good argument. There's always room for improvement, no matter where you are with respect to communication skills. But in 2012, I was offered a job that was a promotion to move from Southeast Wisconsin to San Ramon, California in the Bay Area. And the reasons I was identified were told to me point blank. It's because I'm a technical guy. I'm like a carbon rod in a nuclear pile, which is their way of saying that if things are contentious, I can probably help keep the excitement down to a manageable level. Because the situation in our San Ramon office was such that all the GE businesses were coming together to try and use a new software platform. It was expected to be very contentious, and people with good communication skills, the ability to influence others without creating defensive reactions, all kinds of things that were not in my repertoire in 2002 were being identified specifically as causes for me to be offered this promotion if I wanted to move to California. So I was all in on that. Even though that was my personal experience, some of the engineers who I recommended go to Toastmasters also had great experiences. They got greater confidence, many of the things that Gary talked about. They were able to communicate better. They were active listeners when they hadn't been before. There's a thing that a lot of people do. I don't know if it's common to engineers. I know that sometimes I even did this way back when. We simply wait for someone to stop talking. We're not really listening to what they're saying before we respond and engage with them. And Toastmasters helped me, and it helped the people who I recommended. So I endorse it personally. I've enjoyed the experience myself. It's had positive impact. It's not often you can say, I got this promotion because of things I got in Toastmasters, but it was true.
Absolutely. And I'd like to ask this to Gary and Adele, because I think it sounds like you both are functioning in that government and corporate world. Do you see Toastmasters functioning any different in the government setting or in a corporate setting, or do you see commonalities there?
I see a lot of commonalities, actually, because like I said, I've been in human resources my whole career. And one of the things that we do at the state of Oregon is if people are joining their Toastmaster club, a lot of times their manager will let them be reimbursed through their training funds. And when you think about it, you know, the 6-month dues for Toastmaster is so tiny compared to the training that we usually send people to. So I always thought that it was a really good thing for the state of Oregon to do it. Not every member asks for a reimbursement, but those that do, almost everybody, I didn't hear of anybody that didn't get their dues reimbursed to them from the state.
Excellent. And Gary, I really loved your Nordstrom stories. I am a Nordstrom groupie. I love that whole concept of the customer as the being customer centric. That's what I do for a living, is manage a global help desk. And I, as a note I took when you were speaking, is the power of communication as a customer related tool and the power of offering feedback. Can you give more of an observation on that as you look at how Toastmasters has served you throughout the many years?
Yes, thank you, Cindy. So we all have customers. Anyone in business, nonprofit, government, doesn't matter. We all have a customer. And so to answer quickly the prior question, it doesn't matter where the Toastmasters Club is based. It's all the same. Everyone has a customer. And to deliver outstanding customer service, you communicate with people, whether it's verbal or nonverbal or written, it's all communication. And you learn all of that in Toastmasters. Toastmasters is the best bargain in the world. I know these are tough times for many people. Many people, unfortunately, have lost their jobs. And I know that. And back when I was unemployed, I was grateful that I had the resources to join Toastmasters. And it has paid me back multifold over my life and my career. It is so worth it. But back to your question, Cindy, it's all about communication, and you cannot deliver and provide outstanding service without knowing how to effectively communicate. And Toastmasters helps provide those skills.
Excellent. Excellent. Another thing that I noted was this concept of, we've heard a couple people refer to it, the Zoomiverse and being on Zoom, or whether you're on Teams all day, and how this has altered our life. And we all hearken back to a year and a month ago, and we did not know we would be in this position. So I see that in my experience at Harley-Davidson, we have 2 Toastmaster clubs, one at the corporate headquarters and one in our production plant, which is very rare. It's a hybrid club that has plant workers and management people, which is great because we're all just Toastmasters. And one of the things that I wanted to open up to the floor was, in this world we're in, where we are currently limited and we're looking at engaging and continuing that employee engagement with each other as team members, how have you experienced Toastmasters? Any engagement opportunities for Toastmasters? It's like everyone's waiting. Like,
Okay.
PJ, since you turned your mic off, how do you see Toastmasters and helping employees engage and still feel like a cohesive work team?
Okay, and you specifically mentioned Zoom. I'll get to that in a moment. One of the things that I had to do later on in my 30-year career at Tektronix, we had to make quarterly review presentations to our vice president, and occasionally the CEO would attend. Several of us who were in these quarterly review meetings belonged to the Tektronix Toastmasters Club. It was called Silicon Forest, the play on the Silicon Valley. Those of us who were Toastmasters gave the best, most polished presentations by far. I mean, it just head and shoulders above the other presenters in the group. We finished in our allotted time, and we came in with our project manuals and passed them out to the other Toastmasters in the group and received written evaluations on our presentations. So it was not only an opportunity for us to present, but it was an opportunity for us to receive feedback and learn. That's one thing. So now Zoom, in this Zoomverse or Zoomiverse or universe, whatever we call it, I actually had a job for a while where I had to demonstrate software over the computer network, over the internet. I wish that I had this past year of experience holding Toastmasters meetings on Zoom when I was doing that job for 12 years, because I learned so much about how to communicate by looking into that camera and talking to people over the internet, things that I did not know when I was doing the job. And sometimes I hate to look back and think of all the things that I did wrong in my life and that I would do differently now that I know better. But it's a continuous learning experience. We learn every day. I will share the last couple of days, we've been practicing behind the scenes for this event tonight. And we've learned some new things about Zoom just in the last couple of days. It's an ongoing learning experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I came to Toastmasters, because I was working and doing email at night, and I said, I need to stop this and join something that refreshes me, my soul, my mind. And that was how I found Toastmasters. And then I had the opportunity to bring it with Gary's help, which is a side story. Gary was the president of Toastmasters at that time and came to Harley-Davidson in Milwaukee, and he was vital in planting that seed, which has then taken root. And my company so values the Toastmasters experience that they fund the clubs, they pay our dues, we do nominal contributions, we manage ourselves. And it was simply because Gary was involved in planting that seed. And that was hugely important. And I believe, Jim, you talked about the power of feedback. And that I joined initially for one reason, but I found that feedback, giving and receiving, which is the art form, was really what keyed into my corporate experience in Toastmasters. So Adele, as you look as an HR professional, how have you seen Toastmasters in that vein where it's about learning to give and receive feedback?
Well, one of the things that I did as a recruiter at the state was I helped people find jobs at the state. I was a career counselor. I did a lot of mock interviews. So guess what? All of the things that I was doing were based on everything that I had learned in Toastmasters. Strong listening skills, good evaluation skills, giving people good, strong things that they could actually do to improve their interview skills. And part of that was talking to them about just joining a Toastmaster club, because that would be something that would help them to learn how to speak off the cuff, because you don't always get the questions ahead of time in an interview. I know in private sector you never do, but at the state, a lot of times they do give you the questions about 15 minutes ahead of time. But guess what? If your job is something that you really do need to know how to speak off the cuff and do an impromptu kind of discussion, I never gave those people the questions ahead of time, because I wanted to see how they reacted to those questions and how they did. But definitely this has been something that I have used personally over the years to help other people to be successful.
Great, awesome. It is. It can be a game changer, and part of it is behavior modification, right? You become exposed to the fact of speaking and presenting. As we look at these last few moments of our panel, I wanted to go around, and I'll start with you, PJ. If each of you would just like to give the audience who might not have experienced Toastmasters or corporate, what is one takeaway you have had from the experience?
Only one out of so many. That is a tough question, Cindy. The thing that I appreciate probably the most I've already mentioned, and that's the time management aspect of it. You learn how to be succinct and get your point across without boring others to death and without taking up unnecessary time. It's a phenomenal skill to build and helps everyone.
Awesome, great. And Adele, if you could share one observation or experience.
Probably one that I think was the hardest for me at the very beginning was was talking to management about why this is so important. Because I've always been a very quiet individual and not wanting to make waves and all of that. But going to the director of our agency and talking to them about, here's why we need this bilingual Toastmaster club for the state of Oregon. And here's why I want our agency to pay for it. They loved the idea. So I think that, you know, having this opportunity to really go forward and explain to management, it really helped me too. It helped me realize that I am a pretty good communicator when I think about what I want to say. And when I really know and I'm really committed to that, I'm passionate about it, I'm probably going to get what I'm asking for. So that was big.
Awesome. And your passion comes through. Absolutely. Mr. Coley, one thing you'd like to share about your experiences in a corporate Toastmaster club. Yep. Oh.
I'm on mute. Here we go. So a couple of the good ones have already been taken, but there's a thing about Toastmasters that's super important. And it was one of those things where it comes to mind when I think about the return on investment. And that is, it's more than simply doing things. And you talked about behavior modification before. Really, the thing that is most striking for me is when you get a bunch of smart introverts in a room and they start using a disciplined approach to communicating and influencing other people, not only just as speakers, but as club officers, and then perhaps also getting involved at leadership opportunities outside the club. These are opportunities they don't have in the office, either because they've been pigeonholed a particular way, or they don't have the skill set. So those opportunities allow them to experiment and grow and be trained and have mentoring to become leaders, where otherwise they might be stuck for life doing some super important, highly technical thing that doesn't require communication skills. Really lets people blossom.
I like that. I like that. And Gary, if you could give us your final thoughts on the impact of Toastmasters in a corporate setting.
There's so many, but I'd say the most important is the friendships and the professional relationships you develop through your fellow members of the club. These are people that will help transform your life, that will help you in your next job, in your current job. Look, my real estate agent I met in Toastmasters, my attorney, my accountant, my best friends, all because of that environment where you get to know someone by the speeches they give, the remarks they make. You go on that journey together. It is really the most valuable component, whether it's a corporate or a community club. The friendships, the relationships, it's all about the people, all about the people.
Thank you. Well, thank you to my panelists. You've been honest and forthcoming. Your passion comes through, and I thank you for your comments and really connecting this evening and helping us better understand the Toastmasters experience. At this point, I would like to turn the lectern back over to Lorri Andersen. Lorri?
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much for leading that facilitation of panelists. You know, and it's really nice to get to know everyone on the panel a little bit better and to hear your experiences that you've had in Toastmasters. And it's interesting because when you say, could you just give me one thing to think about that is the best thing about Toastmasters? And everyone said, you know, I just can't say just one thing. There's just so many things. So at this point in time, we're going to transition to our question and answer period. And PJ Kleffner, my district director, he will be leading that along with Eldred Brown, our chat monitor. So PJ and Eldred, I do see that there are some questions already in the chat box.
Okay, I'm taking it away, I guess.
Yes.
Thank you, Lorri. Yes, the very first question in there proposed was, how do you start a corporate club or any club? And someone already replied, there's a handbook for that. Toastmasters is very good about training and providing manuals and instruction to do just about everything you have to do in Toastmasters, including starting a club. Basically, to start a club, you need 20 members. And that's years of experience. Toastmasters has determined that if you have a group of 20 people, not all of them will be there at every group meeting. So 20 gives you enough people that you'll have 10 or 15 there each meeting so that you can have a fun and well-organized meeting. The dues, $45 every 6 months or $90 per year. So that's very economical. My employer used to send me off to these workshops, these 1, 2, or 3 day seminars to learn communication or time management skills. And they'd pay $1,000 or $2,000 for one of those. And I'd come back all fired up, and then a week later, back to the same old habits. The cool thing about Toastmasters is that you meet regularly, and so you build and reinforce those skills week after week after week. So you gain the benefit long-term. You develop new habits rather than just go pumped up for a week and then you forget and go back to your same old stuff. Okay, there, I answered that very long question, or a very long answer to that. Eldred, do you want to read another question for me, please, as our chat master?
Yes. Question, how do we add personal connection in online meetings where we aren't talking with each other before and after meetings?
Would one of our, Jim, you have your hand up, go for it.
Yes. Through a series of scientific experiments, one of my community clubs has decided that we would open up Zoom half an hour before the meeting was scheduled to start as a simple substitute for the social experience. It is not the same because it's like trying to have a conversation with a party line if you're old enough to even know what that is. So it's hard to have one-on-one time with special friends or with your mentor doing that, but it's a lot better than no social time at all. It's plenty of time to catch up, to share subjects of mutual interest, and talk about things that are common concerns and get that all taken care of before the meeting starts.
Thank you, Jim. That's a very great answer. My home club does the same thing. We get online a half hour before and have the social time before, similar to what we had tonight. For those of you who were here before 6:30 start time, we were telling jokes and having a great time, great social time. Okay, Eldred, next question, please.
Next question, how are you supported when you start a new club?
Somebody want to take that one? I know the answer. When you start a new club, you get 4 people to help you right from the get-go. 2 people are assigned as sponsors of the club, and generally those are the people who are proactively going out and trying to find these 20 people I mentioned before, or in Gary's case, 150. So the sponsors are those people who go out and find the people and actually do the paperwork and start the club. Then you're also assigned 2 mentors. These mentors are experienced Toastmasters who will attend your meetings for 6 months and help you learn how to be Toastmasters. And oftentimes the new Toastmasters club will have a few experienced Toastmasters in the club anyway, and they can help get the new club started. But the 2 mentors, that's their primary role, is to make sure that you know how to be Toastmasters, how to run a meeting, and how to fill out all the forms and do all of the things that you need to be a successful club. Anybody want to add anything? Does that kind of answer it? That's how you get started. You do get some help. You don't have to do it yourself. I did start a club when I was some people use the phrase a baby Toastmaster. I was fairly new, and I was so excited about Toastmasters. I wanted to share it with the people at my church because I was so, oh my gosh, the people would stand up there who were participating in the service, reading scriptures and whatnot. They were saying, yeah, and they were looking down, no eye contact, no vocal variety, and they would just bore you to death. And I said, oh, I've got to help these people. So I started a club at my church. They voted the name to be Babylon, kind of a take on the Babylon story. Hopefully we're more effective than the Babylon story in the Bible, but we had people help us start that club. So let's get on to the next question.
Next question is more of an announcement. I was asked to announce that if you would like to see everyone, you can choose gallery view, which is up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen if you're in speaker view at the moment.
Yeah, there's a little view icon up there. You click on that, you can choose gallery or speaker view.
And the next question, can you give an example from your own experiences managing communication between teams, and how did your Toastmasters experience help you?
Okay, I've been doing all the talking. One of the other panelists want to take that, or someone else from the audience who has the experience?
Now,
I'll-
I'll offer,
Go ahead, Cindy. Go
okay,
ahead.
I'll go a little and then I'll pass it to you.
Yeah,
One
sure.
thing that I did not do before I was in Toastmasters, when I would send out an email invitation to a meeting, I would send out an email invitation to a meeting, and it would say the topic, the date, the time, and I'd send it off and expect those people to be there and be engaged. And I had a metamorphosis when I became a Toastmaster that no meeting announcement comes from me that doesn't have an agenda and a desired outcome,
Yeah.
which is a lot like a Toastmaster meeting. It's, we're going to meet from this time to this time. Here are the 2 to 3 items I'd like to solve. Here is the problem we're looking to resolve. And here's what I'd like to leave the meeting with. That never occurred to me before Toastmasters. And then one thing I found is because we have multiple Toastmaster clubs throughout our corporate experience, we've created a network of individuals that, regardless of what rank they are, we have vice president of the company, we have directors, we create an informal and yet very powerful communication channel where we know each other as people and have used Toastmasters in that way as well. On to you, Gary.
Thank you, Cindy. So we haven't talked a lot about the leadership opportunities in Toastmasters. There are leadership roles at every level, the club level up to the international level. And that's really the place I help to hone my communication skills on how we impact others through our leadership skills. Very, very quickly, at Clackamas County, like most organizations, our employees have mostly been working remote for over the past year. I just this week announced to all employees they are slowly going to be returning back to the workplace, up to all employees coming back in July. And how we communicated that was very, very well orchestrated. And I learned all that through Toastmasters. I met with my director leadership first. They gave feedback, helped refine the plan. Ultimately, I told them what the plan was, asked for what do our employees need to know to best communicate that. Then we talked to the managers and supervisors, then the union presidents, because we work in a union environment. And then we sent the message to all employees. When I send an employee message, I usually get 50 to 60 responses from employees out of 2,700. That's not a lot, but usually it's thanks for the great message or we hate you, Gary. That's okay. We get all components. I'm open to that feedback. To this message I sent this week, I got 0 responses. So either employees love it or hate it, but I believe it's because we had such a good communication plan. The department leadership and managers were able to talk to their employees as soon as that message went out. And I'm telling you that story because I learned all of that in Toastmasters. Toastmasters taught me the effective communication strategies to work within team environment. So that's what I would offer to that question. Thank you, Gary. Adele.
Yeah, at the state of Oregon, working with a lot of recruiters, well, that's what I was asked to come back to do, to help kind of revamp the recruiting process at one of the agencies. And because, like Gary was just talking about, because of my leadership experience in Toastmasters, I was up for that challenge, and I worked with every single recruiter to talk to them about what they were doing well and what their strengths were, but here are some areas that we all need to focus on making better. And we came together as a group and made some changes, but I don't think if I had had all of that Toastmaster experience, I probably wouldn't have been as successful as I was in bringing that group together. because some of them were very angry because there was somebody from the outside coming in telling them they felt like I was coming in to tell them what to do. And I wasn't. We were working together to make the process a lot better.
Thank you, Adele. I just want to tag very quickly on the comments Gary made about leadership. I had a lot of experience making presentations and public speaking when I joined Toastmasters. So the biggest gain for me probably was in the leadership area. I quickly got involved in club leadership and then area and division and district level. And I am now the district director for our district. So I have learned so much over the 20 years in the leadership aspect of it. Eldred, do we have some more questions there? And Lorri, how are we doing on time? Have to unmute.
Thank you. We're doing well. We still have probably enough time for a few more questions, a couple of more questions at least.
Okay, all right. Pick one, Eldred.
Next question. How do you feel about using the new digital speechcraft for 4 to 8 sessions as a way to introduce new people to Toastmasters?
Does anyone have experience with that? I have done some of the old version of Speechcraft, but I haven't done the new one yet.
Mine is the same as yours, PJ.
Okay, well, I can speak about my experience with Speechcraft. I mentioned before that Toastmasters is an ongoing program and you build on the skills and reinforce them, and it helps you develop new habits compared to the 1 or 2 or 3 day seminar that your company pays lots of money to send you to. Speechcraft is kind of a hybrid approach of that. It's a 4, 6, or 8 week seminar session, depending on how you want to set it up. And it condenses all the skills that you learn in Toastmasters into this workshop environment. I personally have conducted that, let's see, 2 times, and we got great feedback from the upper management and the HR people at the company where I did that. And they said that they saw results in their employees within the first couple of weeks, and it kept growing. So the company that I did that at, I guess I'll name drop, Dan and Yogurt, they actually called me up and had me come back and do it again for their mid-level management and supervisors a couple of years later because they were so impressed. They just said it was a very, very worthwhile investment. And when I told them how much, they didn't bat an eye. They just wrote a check because it cost less for them to do. We did 18 people. That cost less than to send one person to one of those seminars like I mentioned. Okay, one more question. Then we probably should let Lorri have this to wrap it up.
Okay, so a question about company support. This person heard from an HR manager that employees need to have skin in the game, so to speak. Please speak on the pros and cons of this.
I have an opinion, but Jim unmuted and he's smiling. Let's hear from Jim.
Thanks, PJ. Pretty sure all of us have an opinion on this, and I wouldn't be surprised if we had some things in common about our opinions. I think the classic discussion is that HR is not completely naive about these kinds of things, and even we all are not that naive about it either. We know that sometimes employees will take advantage of whatever benefit is there, but they might not take it seriously unless they're being held accountable to it for any number of reasons. So one of the conversations that I've had when helping either set up a corporate club or even talk about a corporate club has to do with exactly what the due schedule is and how much the company's involved financially to make sure that the employees who are going they feel like they have skin in the game. Because if you're paying money for it, in theory, you should be vulnerable to the logic that you should be getting your money's worth. If you're not putting any money into it, your incentive for going is going to be a little bit different. It'll be probably all internalized, but you won't be thinking about it from how do I get my return on investment from this experience. So my view is I agree with HR. Employees should have some skin in the game. I'm not a big fan of corporate clubs where the employees don't pay anything. On the other hand, if the company is paying all the dues, it simplifies the billing process quite a bit.
It does. Thank you, Jim. My experience at the club at Tektronix, as I mentioned, it was a community club. I submitted an expense form for reimbursement, which my manager happily signed off on to reimburse me for my dues. But I had my Toastmasters goals in my personal development section of my annual performance review. And he wanted to know, okay, how many educational award levels did you complete this past year when we sat down for the annual review? He was more than happy to pay my dues because he saw the benefit, my skills increasing, but he wanted to make sure I was participating before he signed off. So kind of a combination, but it was not a free ride. They did not pay. Adele.
Yeah, at the Treasury, at Toasting Excellence, which was started by Treasury, we actually had to attend 85, I think it was 85% of the meetings in order for them to go ahead and reimburse us for the full amount of the dues. And we had to keep track, the secretary of the club had to actually keep track of who was at every meeting. And then we turned that in quarterly so that the agencies knew who was attending the meetings on a regular basis.
Very good. Yes, thank you. All right, I see that we're approaching 2 minutes until we've used up an hour tonight. I do want to honor Lorri's commitment that we're going to start and finish on time. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm happy to hang on here a little longer if other people want to chat or have more questions, but I'm going to turn it back to Lorri now for closing.
Thank you, PJ, Eldred, and all of our panelists. Thank you for everyone tonight for attending our meeting and being a part of this event. I mean, we couldn't have done it without every one of you. So I just really want to personally thank everyone, especially just thank our guests for coming tonight. I know as a result of this meeting tonight that many of you are going to say, I want to start a corporate Toastmasters club at my office place, at my organization. And I want to help you do that. We have people here in the district along with me to help you set up demo meetings, to help you talk more about Toastmasters in your workplace. And with all the wonderful information that Gary brought out, and Adele and Jim and PJ, you've got all the benefits. You can see the return on the investment, the corporate engagement and the relationships that you build inside of you through experiential training and learning. And this is the hard part of the meeting, is to have to say goodbye to everyone, but I just want to thank you again for attending my meeting, and I will reach out to all of you by email and to help you answer additional questions that you do have. So PJ or Gary or Adele or Cindy, is there anything else that you can offer before tonight we say goodbye?
Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you again. And I wish you a very good evening, Cindy. I hope that it gets warmer for you out there on the west, on the East Coast. And we already had our ice and storm, so we don't want to have that again. But we're heading into good weather here in the Northwest. So thanks again, everyone. And I will let you go for the remainder of your evening.